Good morning to you all, to another edition of Good Morning BSN. As you all know, Good Morning BSN is sponsored and hosted by the Culture Factor Chint Business School Netherlands on behalf of the Impact Center for Great Leadership. Today we got two very famous speakers from the Netherlands working at Business School Netherlands as action learning tutors. So Hans van Buijten and Guus Goris, welcome. And I will give the word to Hans. Go ahead, Hans.
Thank you, Sam, and good morning to you all. Good morning to you all. And Guus, please share the first slide.
There it comes.
Now I can see you. Yeah. Okay, the subject today is about clear-minded leadership. Next slide, please. So this is our belief. A clear-minded leader sees things as they really are. And let me start with a question. As you know, I'm an action learning tutor. I'm coaching groups with action learning. And of course, the fundamental competence of action learning is asking questions. Would you want your heart surgeon to have a clear mind operating on you instead of experiencing things like anger or fear or shame? And what about the rest of the operating team, what we can actually call his leadership team? I think the answer is clear. You just want him to be very clear and very calm and having access to all his knowledge and experience. Next slide, please. Guus. Okay, I'm going to stand still for a few moments on the effects of clouded and stuck minds. And this is a really worse, a bad example of stuck and clouded minds. It's the deadliest airline disaster in history. March 27, 1977, a leadership team in the cockpit of KLM with a very, very experienced captain, also lecturing new pilots, mistakenly hearing and understanding that he got clearance of air traffic control and being under pressure because KLM just wanted and always wants flights to fly on the right time. The weather conditions were suboptimal and he understood that he got clearance for takeoff. And the first officer and the flight engineer, they really heard something else. And they were debating with him. They were asking him and telling him that there was no clearance given by air traffic control. But this authoritative captain was unable to listen. So his clouded mind blocked the ability to listen and to really check in if there was a clearance. And this is the result. The Pan Am Boeing was on the same lane and it flew full in the Pan Am Boeing. Next slide, please. Guus. So the price was huge. Almost 600 people died. Over 60 were severely injured, affecting thousands of people directly, but especially indirectly. Grief, loss, trauma. A terrible thing, a terrible thing. But also in the business world, a price has been paid and probably will be paid in the future as a result of clouded and stuck minds. Next slide, please, Guus. If we just look at the first example, Lehman Brothers, going bankrupt in 2008, 158 years after the start of its existence, knowing that the CEO was rewarded almost $900 million between 2000 and 2007. So you can imagine the impact of emotions linked to his own awards. I mean, realizing that he was awarded almost $900 million. It's one person, it's one CEO. So things like greed and fear really played a huge role in the bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers. But look at the other well-known huge brands. General Motors doesn't exist anymore. Company like Hertz and Toys R Us. And then think about Wirecard, which is really not long ago when it went bankrupt, 2020, as a result of massive, massive accounting fraud. So what's beneath this fraud? Which emotions, which stuck minds are pursuing on this way of conducting business with all the effects it has, the price we have to pay? Next slide, please, Guus. One back, please. So the question here is your mind then working against you? And there's no clear answer. I would say the answer is yes and no, because we do not have just one mind. We have a conscious and an unconscious mind. And I will explain the difference between both in the coming few minutes. So as you probably already know, I've been a tutor in action learning, and I've been using action learning for many, many years. I think more than 300, 400 action learning sessions I've coached. And there's a link actually between the parts of mind, conscious and unconscious. You can also make the link towards the things we see in organizations like KPIs and strategy and structure and all those kind of things. And the things we call undercurrents, which is linked to emotions, dynamics in teams, people missing to be heard and seen, all those kind of elements. And my experience in these many, many action learning sessions, that probably 95% of all root causes of problems in organizations I've been working with, the root causes of problems lied in the undercurrent. And maybe that's also a bit comparable with conscious and unconscious mind, but I will come back to that later. Next slide, please. So then why should we clear our minds? Well, I believe that with a clear mind, we can make rational decisions. We can ask for the facts. We can make these decisions in a group. So it's not one person who's making the decisions, but it's a group decision. Creativity is active, is online, you could say. Because if I'm very angry or if I'm very fearful, my creativity drops like a stone. And that's for all of us. A clear mind means also that I'm able to embrace the not knowing. I do not have to know as a leader everything. I do not have all the facts and figures and information, for a simple reason that it's impossible to have it. And again, using the knowledge and the experience and the qualities of the members of teams, and using also their knowledge, makes me able to embrace the not knowing. And also it makes me able, and you able, to really connect to the members of the teams you lead, and the team you are a part of, and support others. Next slide, please. Please. I think you went one too far. I'm not sure. Yeah. So what's a clear mind? It's mental clarity. It's freed from preoccupation. So what are examples of preoccupations? These are things like anger and fear and shame and regret. So if we are experiencing anger, or if we are experiencing anxiety, that's the opposite of a clear mind. It stands in the way and it creates confusion, and it also makes inner calmness and balance impossible. So a clear mind creates balance and calmness, and it leads to freedom from confusion. Next slide, please. And what are then the benefits? I think creativity and curiosity is an important asset to all of you and all of us. All leaders should have access to creativity and curiosity. And how many teams have you been part of, or are you part of, where there is still joy and humor and a positive energy? So if there is a clearness of minds, there is more humor, there is more joy, there is more positive energy. People feel connected. People have the experience of being heard and seen. And this decision making is again done in the team with each other, based on leading with questions. We ask each other questions. We ask for facts, for beliefs, for views, and then we make a decision based on analytical thinking. Next slide, please. So how can we improve our awareness? And I mean with awareness is, how am I doing when it's linked to clearness of my mind? And the most, let's say, functional way is to conduct interviews and really ask the right questions to your partners, to your siblings, to the peers in your own management team, and to the employees who are member of the team you are leading. What are you seeing me do? What behaviors, what emotions can you see or sense or feel? And what is the impact of my emotions and my behavior on you? These are probably not the easiest questions, but I think it creates a level of awareness. And with that awareness, we can move forward. Next slide, please. So what are root causes of an unclear mind? So I'm going to share in a few moments, just in a few minutes, a perspective. And is that perspective the truth? No, it's a way of thinking. I just wanted to share this way of thinking. So in the animal world, when a zebra gets information through the senses that lion is approaching, mind of zebra is creating anxiety or fear, and all the bodily systems of the zebra are involved to create maximum strength in its legs in order to run as fast as possible and to outrun lion. Next slide, please. So what happens with human beings? We have this combination of our unconscious mind, which is also having the same prime directive of our physical survival. So the same way the mind of zebra works. But if information comes in through our senses, for example, being part of a management team meeting where we really have to make tough decisions because things are happening around us in our market, it might be the case that making or having to make a tough decision is being read through our minds as a threat. But usually it's not a real threat. It's not the same threat as lion is to zebra. But our minds go to survival mode. And the only difference between our mind and our body and zebra's mind and zebra's body is that zebra is really going to run and we're still sitting there and staying in our chairs. So our whole mind is giving the impulses to run, and the thing we are doing is we're staying in our seat and everything is happening. Lots of things and emotions and physical sensations and thoughts and impulses are running through our body and running through our minds. Next slide, please. So do you recognize that when that things happen, when there is a crisis, when you have to make this tough decision of, for example, having to lay off people, or really changing something which has a huge impact on the organization, and your emotions are triggered. You sense everything, all kinds of things in your body. What happens to your creativity, to your curiosity, to your logical thinking, and to your humor? Is it still there, or is it also gone? And what then is the impact on solving complex problems with your partners, with the members of your team? Is that still possible? Or almost impossible because of big emotions? Next slide, please, Guus. So there are a few things we can do ourselves. So at the moment where we are conscious of emotions like anxiety or anger, we can use coherent breathing. And it's a very, very simple thing. In fact, it's simple. It's 5 to 6 breaths per minute, meaning an inhale of 5 seconds and exhaling 5 seconds. And by doing that, you will really calm your mind. And it might be an idea when emotions are sky high in your team. And it might sound very soft, the thing I'm now proposing, but just to propose a few minutes of coherent breathing, it will directly change. Within a minute, it will change the way you interact with each other. But other ways are meditation or yoga, mindfulness, and enjoy nature. So these are the simple ways to create inner calmness, to clear your mind, to have access to curiosity, access to creativity, access to joy and humor and passion and logical thinking. So it will really make a huge difference. Guus, can I give the word to you? Or do we go back to Sam?
Well, it's fine by me. Thank you, Hans. Well, I make the switch over for a few seconds.
We can't hear you, Sam.
Well, my mic is on, so it's
Yeah.
not? Yeah, you can hear me? I will make the switch to Guus. Thank you, Hans, for your presentation. It takes a lot of courage, doesn't it, to do this within companies or yourself. So I hope Guus will give us some reflection on your presentation, Hans, and also telling us how to do this and how to take care of the responsibility of getting a clear mind. Guus, go ahead.
Guus, you have to unmute first.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Hans, for this wonderful presentation. And Sam, you got the first point of the reflection quite right. Yes, it takes a lot of courage to do this in companies. If you look at what we all learn at BSN, the main focus is on things like operations and strategy and HR. And usually teachings are not about how our system works as a whole. What Hans did tell us is that we have this autonomous nervous system being active without us knowing, autonomously, of course, the word said it all. And just like in the animal world, the very nice example of lion and zebra, our autonomous nervous system works exactly the same. That means that when you are in a stressful situation, when you have to solve a complex and urgent problem, well, that sounds familiar from action learning, then stress is on the edge, it's not far away. So keep in mind that your autonomous nervous system plays a role then. Without any training, without any conscious mind of this, you're not aware of the fact that your creativity is lower, that your level of rational reasoning is lower, and that you might take decisions that are not influenced by the knowledge you have. So the way to influence our autonomous nervous system, as Hans told us, is very simple in this breathing thing. Meditation and yoga is for the longer term, and the breathing you can do during a meeting. So the interesting part, what we try to make clear, is that a clear-minded leader has an awful lot of knowledge on everything, on the digital revolutions going on right now, how to use AI, etc. Has to be financially aware of all the insecurities of uncertainties we are living by, things like the VUCA world, you will all know this. But when you forget about your bodily systems, you lose much of your qualities. I think that's the main thing in the reflection I want to make very, very clear. It's not only the knowledge, but is your autonomous nervous system working like hell to save your life. But yeah, that's important for a lion and a zebra, but not for a human being solving complex problems. So what I wish for all of you is that you become aware after this session about the interesting role of your autonomous nervous system. Thank you.
Thank you, Guus. Well, there's some time for question, of course. I can see some hands coming up already. So if you're ready, Hans and Guus, to give some answers to the questions, then we can switch over to our participants. Are there any questions already? Not yet. Well, if there aren't any questions, I have one for you already. As you know, I'm responsible for in-company projects, and just talked about taking a lot of courage to do this within a company. Is there a big difference between the individual groups you tutor and the in-companies? And where do you see the difference starting when you do this within a company and when you do this for individuals?
And are you asking me the question?
Yes.
Well, if you want to answer the question, yes, please.
Yeah, it really depends on the level of psychological safety in the team. So if I work with an in-company team, then it really takes a bit of sensing if it's safe enough to propose this to start with, and to make people aware that what's happening. So, for example, when the tough decisions I was referring to have to be made, and there's a certain dynamic where there are members of the team who really speak out. They're super strong in their beliefs, and there are other members of the same group who get a bit scared. So fear is triggered, you can say. The quality of of sensing that for me as a team coach, and to ask a question about it. Can you please, and are you willing to share what's happening with you when colleagues are really strong with their beliefs? That's many times the entrance to acknowledging what the impact of that strong belief and emotion and wording is on others. And if then it said, well, this is really blocking a real conversation. This is really blocking the process of leading with questions, which we use, of course, in action learning. Then I can ask the question, are you willing to experience the effects of, for example, coherent breathing? But it starts with awareness. It's a great question. So if our people are willing to acknowledge that if things are getting like emotional, you can say, people get angry or fearful. That's the start. That's a start. And again, you're so right. It takes courage to admit that, to say this is what's happening to me. The moment you are sharing this strong belief, I'm a bit going away. I'm shutting down. It's almost like a freeze. I'm not able to move, not only physically, but also losing everything I know. Exactly. Yeah. It's a mental freeze.
Can I add some small things to it?
Sure.
For all of you, when you are in a team or when you lead a team, when you hear the message in this team, you've got to choose your battles. Then be sure that there is something going on, usually very badly, in the undercurrent. Because people are afraid to speak out. And then this thing with this autonomous nervous system is in place, very intense, so to speak.
A good addition to that, Guus. Thank you. Got some questions coming in from Omolola Emmanuel on the chat. Would you like to do that live, or shall I read it for you, Omolola?
You can read it out for her. Those who are attendees cannot speak. You have to read it out for her.
I will read.
You have to read it out for her. Yeah.
I will. From a question from Omolola Emmanuel. In a situation of civil commotion, unrest, bad news flying all around several countries, war, children dying, etc., how do we really manage our mind to get off these troubles and manage a sound mind?
Oh, what a great question that is, because that's unfortunately what's happening all the time on our beautiful planet, and it is affecting us. So there are people who are super worried about climate change, deforestation, overfishing, and all those kinds of things. And others are really worried through all the conflicts in the world and wars and those kind of things. And then still, you have this leadership role, and it's so important that you can stay calm. So what can you do? I think also changing the belief that you are not responsible for that. So if Sam would ask me, can you please solve this war going on in the Ukraine? I have to admit, I cannot take responsibility for that, because it's literally over my head. So it's the way of thinking, circle of influence and circle of concern. So where do we have influence and where don't we have influence? And then really using the simple suggestions like coherent breathing will calm your mind. So it will bring access to what can I do and what can't I do? Where do I have influence and where do I have responsibility and where don't I? I hope that's an answer to the question, and maybe Guus, you want to add something to this?
Yeah, that's I think that's a great answer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And there's some added to that. Will it not loom as non-challenge or finding a way to help or support?
Yeah, the main question is what can we do and what can't we do? So if we can support, for example, as a company, we can support a certain group of people in a certain country. If you have the means to do that, then please do. If I can organize something where I can send certain material to, for example, the Ukraine, and it will give me a good feeling, and it's in line with, let's say, the way I want to present the organization I work with or I'm leading, then yeah, why not? Do what you can.
Okay, thank
But
you, Hans.
unfortunately, I cannot solve the war in the Ukraine, nor can I in Sudan and all the other countries.
Thank you, Hans. Is it an answer to your question, Omolola? I got another question from Tommy. Omololu, interesting discourse on how to practice manage stress at workplace. How do you get honest feedback on what they like or do not like about your management style?
Ooh, that is a nice question. That's a really nice question. So how can you be sure someone is honest? I have been the reflector of Joop a few months ago, and I was sharing something about listening skills, and that active listening is much more than hearing what has been said. So active listening is also looking at the person you're asking the question to, how do you view me as a leader? But also watching what is happening non-verbally and using, let's say, the sensing part of what we all have. And if you are really honest, you know if someone is telling the truth or not. And then invite her or him. Please be open to me. This is a learning opportunity. I'm here to learn and to grow. And I can only learn and grow if you really tell me what the impact of my behavior and my emotions are on you. Please, please give me the honest feedback. But it really depends on the leadership style you have shown over years. If you are a very authoritative leader and it's my way or the highway, in other words, your way or the highway, then it takes a bit of time. Take the time for people to really believe that your questions are sincere, that you really want to know what your behavior and your emotions does with them. So
can I add two things, Hans?
Sure.
The first thing is be the change you want to see. So be honest yourself. And if you are not honest, people will feel it, will sense it with their subconscious senses. That's one. The second is go and look to the TED Talk of Brené Brown. She made that TED Talk in 2011, something like that. It's viewed for over 70 million times right now. And what she says is vulnerability is the last thing I want to show from myself, but it's the first thing I will see from you. I want to see from you. And if you are able to implement a kind of vulnerability-based leadership, then you will solve this problem. But the first thing is be honest yourself.
Great. Thank you, Guus. We got limited time to the ending, so I've got one question yet and a few questions at the chat. So I will give that also to Hans and Guus to answer that later. I will go to the last.
Sam, maybe
yes.
I see the question here from Tom Daldrup. I think
yes,
that's a very important one.
I just wanted to go to that question. Well, how can we self-assess the state we are in and how to correct this state when something is blocking? It's a question from Tom Daldrup.
Okay, one of the most easy self-assessment is take your mobile phone, put the stopwatch on 1 minute, and count the number of breaths you take in 1 minute. So if it's not 5 to 6 breaths per minute, but maybe 10, maybe 15, maybe 20, I've seen it with many people. If anxiety levels are high, our breathing goes up. So you have this shallow, high breathing, which is shallow and fast. So just counting your number of breaths, that's one way. The other way is checking in your body. What is happening within? What is happening with my pulse? What is happening within my stomach? Is there a sensation in my stomach? What is the impulse I have? Is there an impulse of running, or am I feeling as kind of frozen? So these are a few ways of self-assessing the state you're in. And the other thing, the mental thing would be is, do I have access to logic? Do I have really access to humor? Is there any laughter? Can I see the humor in the situation? Or is it just worry, anxiety and anger and fear? So it's probably not so very difficult to assess that. And how to regulate that is one of the ways is this coherent breathing. And if it's something which is almost always there, then the other ways and steps are also very possible. Or maybe meeting someone who can help you with that. To shift it.
Additions?
Okay.
Yes, please.
The first one is, Tom, when you feel your jaws very clear, then the chances are pretty substantial that you feel anger. If you become aware of the fact that you feel your jaw, start breathing. But the interesting thing is, when do you become conscious of the fact that you feel your jaws? And the second one is same, but for fear. Sometimes you see people with their legs doing this. Have you ever seen that? Well, that's fear in the legs, because the muscles are so strong, they must do something with their energy. If you notice in yourself that you're aware of the muscles wanting to do something with your body, walk away from a situation, then the chances are pretty big that there are something to do with fear. Same thing. Start breathing the moment you become aware of the fact that your feet are doing like this.
Okay, interesting. Well, thank you, Guus and Hans, for this presentation and a marvelous topic, because it's something we all experience once in a while and is a very big topic when you lead, of course. We come to the end of our Good Morning BSN session. The remaining questions, I will get them to you so you can answer them to the participants. And I would like to thank you all for joining us and invite you to be there next week on same time and place. Thank you very much. Bye.